Tonight on Unsolved Nerdcast. In the late 1980s, reports began to surface of a strange broadcast, a television program that claimed to document the unknown, but instead left an entire generation afraid to check behind their shower curtains. Witnesses describe a man in a trench coat appearing in living rooms across America. His voice, calm, authoritative, but chilling. His subjects, missing persons, unexplained phenomena, ghostly encounters, and crimes that defied logic. No one knew who he truly was. Some called him Robert Stack. Others just called him the reason they slept with the lights on. If you were a child of the 90s, you may remember that feeling. The low hum of the television after bedtime, the creak in the hallway that sounded a little too real, and that one thought echoing through your head. What if the mystery was me? Tonight, we reopen the case. Okay, yeah. Tell me that didn't just trigger a core memory. That music, that voice, that feeling of pure parental neglect terror at 9:30 p.m. on a Wednesday, that was Unsolved Mysteries. And if you were like me, a curious little nerd with a hand-me-down TV in your bedroom, you learned very quickly that watching Unsolved Mysteries after dark was basically an open invitation for nightmares and ghosts to move in rent-free. Welcome back to another edition of AJN Checkpoint Extras. I'm Nate, your resident boogeyman. I'll be guiding you through the strange and nostalgic. We're taking a walk down the foggy cul-de-sac of memory lane to revisit two shows that scared the absolute hell out of us 90s kids. Unsolved Mysteries and Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction. These were the bedtime boogeymen of basic cable. The kind of shows that made you question whether your hallway light was flickering from bad wiring, or a ghost named Mildred trying to tell you your house was built on cursed Indian burial grounds. Now, don't get me wrong, horror movies scared me, sure, but there was something about these shows that just hit different. Because Unsolved Mysteries was not fiction. At least, it didn't pretend to be. Robert Stack would step out of the fog, stare dead into the camera like he knew what you did last summer, and calmly say something like, "On a quiet night in rural Ohio, a man disappeared without a trace. His car was found abandoned, the keys still in the ignition, and to this day his whereabouts remain unknown." And I'd just be sitting there on the couch clutching a bowl of SpaghettiOs like, cool, awesome, guess I'm never sleeping again. What made it worse was how real it felt. It wasn't jump scares or monsters, it was possibility. Unsolved Mysteries wasn't showing you a horror movie, it was telling you, this happened, it could happen again, maybe to your next door neighbor, or maybe to you. That was the brilliance and the cruelty of it. And then when you thought you'd survived, Saturday afternoon rolled around, Fox came on, and there he was, Jonathan Frakes. The man, the myth, the beard. Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction. Where Unsolved Mysteries traumatized you with real-life disappearances, Beyond Belief gaslit you into questioning reality itself. 5 stories, one of them true. 4 complete fabrications. Your job, guess which was which before the smug Starfleet officer told you you were wrong. You remember that, right? Frakes would just stroll into frame like he owned the multiverse, point at a random prop. Think this story is true? It's not. The dude would ask you 17 fucking questions in 30 seconds. Have you ever had deja vu? Have you ever been alone in an elevator? Have you ever licked a battery? By the end of it all, you weren't even sure who you were anymore. That was Jonathan Frakes' power. Robert Stack scared you with ghosts. Jonathan Frakes scared you with confidence. But let's be honest. These shows had charm. They were eerie, sure, but they were the gateway drug for our generation's fascination with the unknown. Before creepypastas, before Reddit, before true crime podcasts, there was just that blue lit TV glow, one man in a trench coat, and the haunting possibility that maybe, just maybe, we'd never have all the answers. On today's Checkpoint Extra, we're going to break down both of these classics, their origins, their best stories, and why they hold up better than most modern horror. Because for all the haunted dolls and ghost hunting TikToks we've got now, nothing beats a fog machine, an ominous synthesizer, and Robert Stack saying the words, "Authorities are still searching." Goosebumps didn't make you triple check your door locks. Unsolved Mysteries did. And yeah, if you were a 90s kid, you remember that moment where your mom's voice from the hallway was like, "Time for bed." And you were like, "Nah, Mom, Robert Stack just said a UFO might be in our zip code. You think we got trust issues? Nah, dude, we've got stack issues." It's funny, looking back now, I realize how weirdly educational those shows were too. They didn't just entertain us, they gave us our first crash course in critical thinking. Beyond Belief made you question what was real. Unsolved Mysteries made you ask why we believe what we believe. They trained an entire generation of nerds to analyze clues, debunk bad logic, and argue about ghost photos like they were Supreme Court cases. Honestly, those shows might be why we all grew up loving lore videos, ARGs, and podcasts like, well, this one. So consider this episode my love letter and apology to the TV that traumatized me into loving weird stuff forever. We're diving head first into fog, fear, and VHS tape, unpacking the mysteries that shaped a generation's nightmares and the bizarre beauty of not knowing the answers. Coming up, a small Ohio town receives a series of cryptic letters from an unknown writer. Accusations, secrets, and fears spread like wildfire, and decades later, the case remains unsolved. Could you identify the author, or would your name be on the next envelope? Unsolved Mysteries premiered in 1987, but to our generation, it felt much older, like it had always existed. It started as a simple NBC special, 3 mini documentaries about real-life disappearances, and people went nuts for it. So they turned it into a full series, hosted by Stack, an actor best known for The Untouchables, who somehow looked like he had personally interrogated every ghost on the show himself. That theme song was written by Gary Malkin and Michael Boyd, and I am totally convinced they used actual EVP recordings from the afterlife. Those first few notes still make my spine hit the emergency brake. And every episode opened the same way. Foggy street, spotlight through the haze, Stack in a trench coat reading a cue card like it was a death warrant. Then bam, cut to reenactment footage with actors who always look 95% like the real people, but not quite enough to be comforting. All right, case file number 1, the Circleville Letters. This is one of the wildest true crime stories the show ever covered. Part soap opera, part psychological warfare, and still unsolved to this day. 1976, small town Ohio. People start getting anonymous letters exposing their secrets. Not cute pen pal stuff, we're talking your spouse is cheating, I know where you work, stop it or else vibes. Thousands of letters over years. Same handwriting, same vicious tone. A bus driver named Mary Gillespie was accused of an affair with the school superintendent. One day she found a sign along her bus route threatening her daughter. She pulled over to rip it down and discovered a crudely rigged booby trap with a .25 caliber pistol aimed at her face. The gun didn't fire, thank God. The serial number was filed off, but detectives managed to trace it back to her brother-in-law, Paul Frashore. He was arrested, convicted, and sent to prison. Case closed? Not even close. Because after Paul went to prison, the letters kept coming. Some were postmarked from Columbus while he was locked up hundreds of miles away. Prison authorities even put him in solitary confinement with no pen or paper. The letters still arrived. Listen, if I'm in jail and people keep getting threat letters in my handwriting, I'm haunting the fucking post office. Unsolved Mysteries aired the segments in 1994, and to this day, nobody knows who wrote those letters. Paul died insisting he had been framed. The case remains open. That episode was peak Lock Your Doors TV. As a kid, I was terrified the mailman was going to drop a "Dear Nate, stop watching cartoons at 2 a.m." note through the slot. Case file number 2. The Ghosts of the Queen Mary. Next stop, Long Beach, California. The Queen Mary. Once a luxury liner, then a World War II troop transport ship. Now a floating hotel that's basically a timeshare for ghosts. Unsolved Mysteries loved a good haunting, and this one had it all. Guests reported phantom footsteps, doors slamming, and the ghost of a young engineer named John Petter crushed in door 13 of the engine room. Stack's narration made it sound like a Navy accident directed by Stephen King. Some say John Petter never left the engine room. Others claim they've heard his hammer still striking metal. Look, I don't scare easily, but the reenactment actor for that episode deserves an Oscar for most haunted expression on basic cable. I swear, every hotel commercial after that looked 10% more menacing. And it wasn't just one ghost story. The Queen Mary segment mixed psychic mediums, ship history, and actual World War II footage. It was like a Travel Channel special from the Twilight Zone. And why did it work? Well, because Unsolved Mysteries never told you it was fake. Stack would just drop that final line. The Queen Mary remains open to visitors. Translation: good luck sleeping on vacation in that place. Case file number 3. The disappearance of Tara Calico. Our last case on today's episode is maybe the most famous and haunting of them all. 1988, Belen, New Mexico. A 19-year-old college student named Tara Calico goes out for a bike ride and never comes home. Her mom finds pieces of Tara's Walkman and cassette tape along the route, like breadcrumbs on asphalt. No witnesses, no suspects, no bike. Then a year later, a Polaroid shows up in a Florida parking lot. The photo shows a young woman and boy tied up with duct tape over their mouths. The woman looks just like Tara. Same hair, same facial mark, same watch she wore that day. The FBI analyzed it. Some experts said it was her. Others weren't so sure. But no one ever identified the boy. The photo was found next to a convenience store where a white van had been parked. The driver never found. That episode aired in 1989, and it broke everyone that watched it, because this wasn't paranormal, it was real evil. And Robert Stack didn't need monsters when humans have always been way scarier. Someone somewhere knows what happened to Tara Calico. Still gets me. Decades later, new theories pop up online every year, but no solid answers. It's one of those mysteries that made a generation realize the world is not always fair and closure is never guaranteed. 3 cases, 3 completely different flavors of fear: the psychological, the supernatural, and the tragically human. And that was the magic of Unsolved Mysteries. It wasn't a ghost show, it was a mirror. It showed you how thin the line is between normal life and the unknown. So, let's talk about why this show hit so hard for us 90s kids. First, it was that tone. Robert Stack spoke like he'd personally investigated the entirety of the Bermuda Triangle himself and barely made it out alive. Every word was a cliffhanger. Could there be life after death? We may never know. And then boom, cut to commercial for Cheerios. It was fucking emotional whiplash. Second, the reenactments. They weren't slick Hollywood dramas, they were shot on location with budget actors, grainy lighting, and actual police props. That made them feel authentic in a way modern true crime just doesn't. Third, the hotline. Every episode ended with a 1-800 number you could actually call if you had tips. And people did. Dozens of cold cases were solved because some random viewer recognized a car or a face. It was the OG crowdsourced internet before the internet. Meanwhile, little me was sitting on my bed thinking, if I call that number, they're going to track my phone and Robert Stack will know I left my toys out. But beyond the fear, there was a strange comfort to it. Unsolved Mysteries didn't mock believers or skeptics. It left space open for you to decide. It was a weekly reminder that life is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes beautifully unsolved. And the legacy lives on. The Netflix reboot, the podcast, the TikTok sampling that theme song. But no matter how many modern versions we get, none will ever beat the image of Robert Stack emerging from the fog like the Grim Reaper of public television. And next, one man asks 5 questions and destroys your sense of reality. Was it fact? Was it fiction? Or was it just Jonathan Frakes gaslighting America on a Saturday afternoon? 5 stories. One host with a beard that could sense deception. One question that haunted a generation. Is it fact or fiction? It's time to talk about Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction, the show that turned lying into an Olympic sport. Where Unsolved Mystery scared you with reality, Beyond Belief scared you with possibilities, and a man named Jonathan Frakes who looked like he'd just tricked you into confessing to a crime you didn't commit. Every week, we'd sit on the couch with our Dunkaroos and be like, I'm gonna guess everyone right this time. And by story 3, you were questioning physics, God, and whether your houseplant was haunted. Beyond Belief ran on Fox from 1997 to 2002. Each episode had 5 short tales: hauntings, coincidences, urban legends, and whatever fever dream the writers could get past standards and practices. The first season was hosted by James Brolin, respectable, calm, a man who'd warn you politely about ghosts. But then, season 2, Jonathan Frakes walked out onto the set, smelled the fog machine, and said, "This is my house now." And he owned that show. The smirk, the lean in, the way he'd say, "Coincidence? We think not." It was like being gaslit by Captain Riker every fucking Saturday. Alright, so let's crack open some case files. I picked 3 stories that defined Beyond Belief for me. One creepy, one bizarre, and one that still messes with my brain a little bit. Danny swears there's a monster in his closet. Mom and Sis say it's his imagination. Big brother Brian makes it a sport. To prove there's nothing there, Brian steps into the closet himself. Seconds later, screaming. They yank the door open. Brian's gone. Shirts on the floor, closet empty. Roll credits, lifetime of therapy. On the show, Frakes called it fact, loosely based on a real case where a kid slipped through a ceiling panel and hid out. No monster, well, unless you count older brothers. Do I believe it? Half yes, half I'm never opening a fucking closet again. And remember how Frakes would stroll out afterward like, we made that one up. Bro, you can't just delete a child from reality and then say, gotcha. That story worked because it weaponized a universal fear. Kids always believe in monsters living in their closets. Parents believe they don't. Beyond Belief said, what if the kids were right all along and every nightlight sold out at Kmart afterwards? Story 2, The Mystery Lock. An elderly woman gets a new deadbolt installed by a friendly locksmith. Next night, she hears someone trying to open her door. She calls the police. They find scratch marks, but no intruder. A week later, the locksmith returns, says he had a dream she was in danger, replaces the lock again. That night, fire erupts in her apartment complex. Everyone dies except her. The new lock jammed, forcing her to sleep in the living room away from the fire. Frakes appears, hands on hips. Could a premonition have saved a life, or is this story locked in fiction? And every 90s kid at home yelled at their TV, dude, just tell me. Turns out that one was 100% true. Loosely based on a real newspaper article from 1985 about a fire in Florida where a faulty door kept a woman from burning alive. Beyond Belief added the psychic locksmith for flavor because, of course, they did. That was the show's secret ingredient. Take a half-true headline, add 2 ghosts and a twist ending, and serve hot over existential crisis. Next up, The Midnight Motel Key. A traveling salesman checks into a motel during a storm. Clerk gives him a key to room 217. He goes in, finds an old photograph of a woman on the dresser. Middle of the night, he hears knocking. Opens the door, no one there. Looks back, the photo's gone. Next morning, he tells the clerk. The clerk pales and says, "Sir, that room's been locked for years. No one's checked in since the fire." 10-year-old me, screaming internally. I swear I slept in the car on every family road trip for 3 years after that one. And that story was 100% fiction. But it felt real because it borrowed from a classic urban legend, the ghostly hotel room. Beyond Belief did that constantly. They recycled folklore like it was an eco-friendly initiative. Okay, so let's have some fun. Let's play at home like it's 1999. I'll read a title. You decide if it's real or fake. Number 1, The Sewing Machine That Predicted Death. Number 2, The Boy Who Could Smell Crime. And number 3, The Wedding Ring That Returned from the Grave. So what do you think? Real or fake? Spoiler alert, they were all real episodes because the 90s were lawless. Here's what made Beyond Belief so fun. It was part game show, part ghost story. You weren't a passive viewer. You were a detective armed with nothing but gut instinct and Pop-Tarts. And Frakes was the quizmaster from hell. And there's a supercut online of every time Jonathan Frakes asks a question on the show. Do you believe in the paranormal? Have you ever walked into a room and forgot why? And it's like watching an AI learn to doubt itself. He'd open an episode standing next to a random object like a typewriter or a canoe and drop some philosophy major bait line like, "This old rowboat once carried 2 lovers across a foggy lake. One returned, the other did not." Bro, it's a bass boat from Target. What the fuck? But that's why we loved him. He wasn't mocking the audience. He was inviting us to wonder. And sometimes to completely embarrass ourselves when we picked wrong, and we did that more times than we didn't. Beyond Belief did for urban legends what Unsolved Mysteries did for cold cases. It took stories you heard around the campfire and gave them production value. For kids of the 90s, this was our X-Files warm-up act. Accessible, fast, a little cheesy at times, but weirdly effective. You'd learn to spot patterns. If a story had a dog, it was probably true. If a story had a mirror, it was definitely fake. If a story had a nun, you had no chance of guessing. And then that final reveal, Frakes walking back on set like a dad who just beat you at Monopoly. If you thought the story of the ghostly carousel was true, you were right. Cue credits, cue trust issues. For all of its corniness, the show taught us how to question information, to separate fact from fiction in a pre-internet world. It was Skepticism 101 for millennials, and Frakes was our professor of paranormal philosophy. So, now we've covered both sides of the coin. Stack gave us real-world terror. Frakes gave us fictional mayhem. But somewhere between those two shows lies the truth of why we loved being scared. It was never about proving ghosts or aliens were real. It was about the wonder, the thrill of not knowing. You ever notice how those shows kind of blur together in your memory? Like, years later, you can't remember if a ghost story was a true case from Unsolved Mysteries or a fake one from Beyond Belief. That's because in the 90s, truth and fiction lived on the same channel. You see, TV back then didn't come with disclaimers or clickbait headlines. There was no algorithm telling you, hey, you might also like hauntings near you. You flipped the channels, you landed on fog, you stayed. And whether it was Robert Stack warning you about real missing persons or Jonathan Frakes asking if your toaster was possessed by the devil, you are in the same headspace. What if this is real? That blur, that sweet spot between documentary and drama, was the birthplace of modern mystery media. Every true crime podcast, every Reddit thread, every found footage TikTok owes a debt to those two shows. They taught us that you don't need jump scares. You just need a camera that won't blink and a story that might be true. They also taught us to absolutely never trust a reenactment actor, because those poor folks would end up on screen like, I swear I'm not the murderer, I just look exactly like him. Stack and Frakes did the same magic trick from opposite sides. Stack said, here's the truth, it's so strange it feels fake. And Frakes would say, here's fiction, it's so convincing it feels true. Between them, they made the uncanny ordinary. And we were kids in the middle of that fog, learning that sometimes the world isn't clearly divided between fact and fiction. And honestly, that's a good thing. It taught us curiosity, empathy, even a little skepticism. We learned to ask questions, to check the mail twice, to maybe close the closet door, but keep listening. It's weird how those low-budget shows prepared us for the digital age. Because now our unsolved mysteries come in push notifications. And our beyond beliefs are TikToks that swear there's a ghost in every mirror. We went from dial tone hotlines to comment sections full of amateur detectives. Different tech, same exact obsession. The thrill of not knowing. Psychologists say the human brain actually likes mystery. When a story ends without answers, the tension sticks around. It's why you can't stop thinking about Tara Calico or that kid in the closet. That unresolved tension equals dopamine with a side of dread. And we 90s kids, we bathed in it because deep down, we wanted to believe. Not necessarily in ghosts or UFOs, but in the idea that the world still had secrets left to be solved, to be found. Even now, every time a YouTube channel drops a video titled The Lost Episode that shouldn't exist, my brain goes, ooh, cool, new Beyond Belief. Stack and Frakes rewired us, man. And here's the thing, mystery isn't just scary, it's kinda comforting. It means there's still wonder in the world. Those shows came out at a time when everything was supposed to make sense. Post Cold War optimism, home computers, family sitcoms, but under all of that, there was fog. And on weeknights, Robert Stack walked out of it and said, "You don't know everything." And somehow, that was kind of reassuring. I still remember watching one of those reruns with my grandma. We were eating pizza, had the volume up too loud, and the lights were totally off. Some ghost story ended, and she goes, "You know, some mysteries stay that way." And I think that's when I kind of realized being afraid and being fascinated are basically the same emotion. It's curiosity with a side of goosebumps. Now, fast forward to today. We've got Reddit's Unsolved Mysteries, a Netflix docuseries, ARGs, creepypastas, YouTubers turning real crime into serial dramas. But it's all chasing that same pulse, the heartbeat under the fog. Unsolved Mysteries and Beyond Belief gave us the template: one voice to trust, one question to answer, and just enough information to drive you insane. So, whether you lean Stack or Frakes, trench coat or blazer, 800 number or psychic locksmith, the lesson is the same. The truth is weird, and fiction is just another way of telling it. And maybe that's why those old VHS recordings still kind of feel alive, like they're waiting to play one more case, one more question, one more unanswered ending. We've talked about the mysteries on our screens, but the truth is, every town's got one. Every state has its story whispered at gas stations and campgrounds, a tale that never quite made it to network TV. And around here, Kentucky and Tennessee have more unsolved stories than abandoned blockbusters. And you don't need Robert Stack, just a foggy back road and a half-charged flashlight. And let's start with the big one, the Bell Witch. Early 1800s, the Bell family farm in Adams, Tennessee. John Bell starts seeing strange animals on his property. The family hears knocking on the walls, chains dragging, and a voice mocking their prayers. They call it the Bell Witch. Some say it was the ghost of a neighbor, Kate Batten, getting revenge for a bad land deal. Others say demon. Either way, it ended when John Bell died after swallowing mysterious black liquid. The witch allegedly said, "I gave old Jack a dose that'll teach him." And that small-town southern vengeance with theatrical flair. Imagine Stack narrating that in the fog. Was it murder or the work of a restless ghost? Meanwhile, Frakes would have walked in holding moonshine going, "We made that one up." Now let's hop over the state line to Kentucky. The Witch Girl of Pilot Knob. Legend says a little girl named Mary Ellen died in the 1900s and was buried in Pilot Knob Cemetery. Locals claim her grave is encircled by an iron fence and her spirit can't leave it. People say they've seen tiny handprints pressed into the inside of the bars. From the inside, the ground around it always looks freshly disturbed. And when I first heard that story, I was like 10 and I absolutely checked every cemetery fence in Warren County for fingerprints. Didn't find ghosts, but did find a shit ton of poison ivy. And a little farther north, the Monroe House in Bedford, Indiana. Close enough to make a spooky weekend road trip. Paranormal teams call it the Midwest's Amityville. They've reported human bones in the basement, voices recorded on tape, and one firefighter refusing to go back inside after feeling a hand shove him. No confirmed cause, no verified deaths. Just a century of really bad vibes. And that's the trifecta right there. Ghosts, witch fences, and a cursed ranch house. All within a few hours of my driveway. Now, closer to our time, there are real mysteries still open right here. The 1999 disappearance of Heather Teague from a Kentucky lake, still unsolved. The strange case of the Bluegrass Triangle, where residents report lights in the sky and electronics dying mid-air. And if you want a modern one, in 2023, hunters near the Daniel Boone National Forest reported hearing a metal scraping sound echoing through the woods for days. They never found the source. And I'm not saying it's aliens, but I'm not saying it isn't. So if you've ever wanted your own Unsolved Mysteries episode, don't look to Hollywood. Just look outside your door after midnight. All right, now before we close the file, I want to hear from you. For next Nerdoween, send me your hometown legends, the road your parents told you not to take, the factory where lights never go out, that one house that always changes hands. You can email me your stories at averagejoenerdcast@gmail.com or drop it on socials. We'll read the best ones in next year's community checkpoint. Seriously, go ahead. Make my editing nights 10 times worse. Fill my inbox with all the nightmares. And when I think back on Unsolved Mysteries and Beyond Belief, I realize they weren't just scary shows. They were invitations to wonder, to dig, to stay curious. The truth is, the world is still weird, and thank God for that. So whether you're walking the dog, driving home, or scrolling in the dark, if you catch a flicker in the screen, a sound you can't explain, or that strange hum of static in the quiet, don't change the channel. That's just the fog of the 90s rolling back in, reminding us that not every story needs an ending. And that's going to do it for this Checkpoint Extra. If this episode brought back memories, if you could hear that theme song in your head or felt the fog roll back in, do me a favor. Please rate, review, share, and feed those algorithm gods so more nerds can find their way into the mystery. All right, let's roll into these shoutouts. To my player 2, thanks for standing by me through every era, every re-recording, and every time I probably deserved bad press. To Cap, for reminding me that nostalgia is just another kind of magic. To my brother holding down the AJN fort while I chase ghosts. And Pickle, if you ever see a trench-coated ghost riding a Roomba through your hallway, do not film it. Offer it pizza rolls and ask if it wants to co-host. And most of all, to all of you, every single nerd who's tuned in, shared a memory, dropped a comment, or just let me keep you company on a long drive, you are the reason this weird little corner of the internet feels like home. You're part of the case file now. Stay gold, nerd bold, stay spooky, and I'll catch you on the next one. All right, I wasn't going to do this, but this is episode 13. Feels wrong to turn the lights back on without opening one last folder. So welcome to File 13, the drawer where the weird stuff lives. Now 13's got baggage. Hotels skip it, elevators pretend it's not there. Some folks swear it's bad luck. Others say that's why it's so powerful. Because fear concentrates attention. And attention, that's where stories are born. All right, let's play another game. Lightning round. 13 or fiction? Rapid fire. Call it out wherever you're listening. A town that renumbers Main Street so it never has a 13th house address. A movie theater that refuses to sell a row 13 ticket, only row 12 and a half. A small airline that doesn't assign a 13th seat. A hospital wing that goes from 12 straight to 14. A pro team that retires the number 13 league-wide for mojo reasons. Answers? First 4 absolutely happen in various places because people are people. That last one, Pure fiction. So far. Commissioners, call me. In high school, I taped a late-night reruns on 12 VHS tapes, numbered in silver marker. One night I found another blank at a thrift store. No label, just a gouge on the spine like someone peeled one off. I brought it home, popped it in, wrote a 13 on the edge. Static. Then, that theme. But the announcer didn't do the usual intro. He said my first name, then my street, then, if you have any information about the hallway light turning on by itself, please come forward. The tracking warped, a frame stuttered, and for half a second, reflected in the TV glass, I swear I saw someone behind me. Coat collar high, face blurred by static. I turned around, nobody there. I ejected the tape. Where the 13 should have been, the spine was blank again. Anyway, I still have 12 tapes. Your turn. If you've got a 13 ritual, story, or odd superstition, send it. I'll pick a few for a File 13 montage next Nerdoween. File 13 stays open. Just a crack.